Hello, everyone, and welcome back to round 4 of the War Machine Weekend 2014 Invitational event. I'm Will Schick, Director of Business Development for Privateer Press, and I'm here with David D.C. Carl, our Development Manager. And we are moving into the semifinal match here for the War Machine Weekend Invitational. And we've had quite the event so far with several exciting games, a few upsets, some interesting dice, as well as some tense matchups so far. So this event, this round, proves to be no different. We see Brandon Kading returning. We saw him play a game earlier in round 2.
Yep.
And lead Severius 2 to victory over his
Tom
opponent.
Wan's Cricks.
Yep. And now we're coming back with Brandon Kading taking on Fiora 2 against Keith Christensen and a very heavily mercenary-themed army in the Haley 2 list. Brandon has used Severius 2 for 3 of the matches so far, so it's an interesting switch for him. Had a lot of luck with that list. But as we were discussing, Severius' feat not super effective against the character-heavy list that Keith Christensen has brought to this bear. So Fiora 2 looking to be the stronger choice. The list looks typical to some of the other Fiora Protector of the Flame lists that we've seen so far. The Fiora 2 with Adjudicator, and the Adjudicator is the bonded Warjack for the list. Reckoner is also in her battle group. Tristan Durant, who we've seen a lot of in Protected Armies this weekend, a very popular support choice. It comes along with a Redeemer, allowing it to fire its rockets and be quite effective with Fortify as well, keeping it fairly survivable against any kind of retaliation against it. 2 Vassals of Menoth for ancillary attacks and enlivens as needed. Iris Angel of Retribution, who also makes an appearance in the Keith Christensen list.
Yeah.
So we'll be seeing Iris versus Iris to find out who's the victor in. A Vassal Mechanic, a Min unit of Choir, complement of Rax to provide extra focus. That Temple Flame Guard unit with the UA that we saw him use to great effect in the Severius list, as well as a Hierophant to help Fiora get some extra focus efficiency. So overall, a strong list and a very not quite as fire-themed list as you might sometimes see, but between the Judicator and its bond, I'm sure we'll see plenty of tokens on the table.
Well, and the Temple Flame Guard with their UA.
With their UA can set some things on fire.
Between the Rax and the Hierophant, it makes any Focus 6 Protectorate caster, but definitely Fiora Protector of the Flame, act like a bit more focus-efficient caster than perhaps other people would.
Feel a lot more like Severius in this list than Fiora 2.
With also having Tristan and also having Choir, you've got a lot of focus efficiency there to really empower those the Redeemer, Reckoner, and Judicator.
Right.
So facing up against him, Keith Christensen, his 2 lists are Captain Victoria Haley and Major Victoria Haley, Haley 1 and 2. He chose Major Victoria Haley for this particular list. In her battle group, she's got Thorn, her personal Arc Node, and a Centurion, both very sturdy jacks. A Squire will also be helping her with focus efficiency. As you can see from her focus of 8, she doesn't really need that a whole lot, but no one's going to complain about extra focus and an extra control area distance. He's got a unit of Arcane Tempest Gunmage Pistoliers with their officer, a full unit of Boomhowler and company. He has Aeona and Holt, so lots of mercenary units coming to help out, and also Alexia, Mistress of the Witchfire. She will be able to create mercenary solos. We've got Anastasia Debray, Eris Angel of Retribution, Gorman DeWolf, Rogue Alchemist, a Journeyman Warcaster, and Reinhold Gobber Speculator. So lots and lots of mercenaries and lots of solos, too. A very solo-heavy list in a lot of ways.
A who's who of characters in the Iron Kingdoms almost.
Yeah, a lot of characters.
It's interesting to note, I look at this list and I see a very Crix-themed antagonist list here. Like this list has a lot of counters to what Crix brings to the table. So I'm curious to see how it will do against the Fiora 2 list that Branding is bringing. There's certainly Haley 2 always has her strengths, and they are significant in any game. But the Centurion, it's no charging, definitely built to counter Lich Lord Asphyxius' feat, where he brings those models back and they have to charge. Shutting that off and protecting your caster from the assassination there is huge. Some
anti-stealth capability to deal with Bane Thralls.
Right. And then you've got Alexia, Mistress of the Witchfire, who has a very strong bent to Crixian defenses. So I can see exactly where that list is mostly aimed to go, and But again, it's got a lot of strong answers, I think, to the Fiora 2. The Journeyman's Arcane Shield, for example. The Centurion's just simple durability. And as well, replication could come into play as depending on what Fiora decides to cast in terms of offensive spells.
Also, just the raw power of Major Haley's feat is something that we hear people talk about quite a bit. It really can shut down an opposing army's offense, especially in certain scenarios.
Right.
Speaking of which,
our scenario for this round 4 is Rally Point. So in Rally Point, there is no kill box. You'll see that there are 2 circular 12-inch diameter zones placed slightly askew towards one player's edge or the other. Those are friendly and enemy zones, respectively. There are also 2 objectives, these objectives being effigy objectives, placed basically 16 inches up from each player's center board edge. The goal of the scenario is always to score at least 5 control points and have more control points than your opponent to immediately win the game. Otherwise, you can always go for the caster assassination as well. If you dominate your friendly zone, you can score 1 CP. If you can control the enemy zone, you're going to score 1 CP. If you dominate it, it's worth 2. And if you can destroy the enemy objective or remove it from play, you're going to score 1 CP, and that's once per objective. Effigy as an objective has the special rule of Valor. So while this model is not contested by an enemy model, friendly faction solos within 4 inches of this model gain Inspiration Faction for 1 round. Friendly faction models units in this model's command range never flee and immediately rally.
So already we see Brandon setting up here, and while this semifinals match goes on, our other semifinals match is Martin Hornacek against Crump. We just saw Crump play his Kruger list. He's now playing his Kaya list, Kaya 2. And Martin chose Mordekar for his army.
And nice to note that Martin Hornacek not only just came from all the way from Slovakia to be here to play in the Invitational, but also took home the championship in the Iron Gauntlet qualifier event that was held here at War Machine Weekend, and we recorded last night. So an extremely talented Scorn player and well-versed in his faction and how to counter other things. So I'm very curious to see. I know the joke going around currently is that can anyone in the U.S. stop the rampage that is Martin? Has been going around both Twitter and the forums. So Martin definitely turning heads here with his great gameplay, his strong generalship of Scorn, and his seeming invincibility at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him at the end of the at the last table, although Nick Crump has been playing very well over this Invitational, has definitely taken his army to victory in the face of certain setbacks as well. As we saw in the last game, a list that was very much designed for an assassination victory, got taken out early by smart play from Charles Aerosmith, and then wound up with Nick changing gears spot on time and winning by scenario, which is something that neither of us predicted at the start of the game, but saw coming as the best potential for him after the initial start. So Brandon has finished his deployment here, and we're now moving on to Keith, who begins his deployment as well. So in his last match, Keith played against Colin Hill, who was playing a Chromac list. Keith was using this exact same Haley 2 list in that matchup. Keith won by the slimmest of margins that we've seen in several games today, as the Warpwolf Stalker that was within potential assassination range of Haley 2 was unable to make the distance. Just a quarter of an inch or so short, and that pretty much marked the game. So Colin, being the great sport that he is and seeing his position, effectively conceded at that point because Keith would have won on his next turn. So Keith made it here sort of by the skin of his teeth. Obviously, Keith is an amazing player, having been through the Iron Gauntlet, making it all the way to the finals this last lock and load, and potentially on his way there as well with a win at the Gen Con Iron Gauntlet qualifiers. But it's been a very intense matchup overall. We've seen some crazy dice in terms of just dice spiking, dice dropping low at times. We've seen games lost by slimmer margins than I've ever seen before. We've seen several measurements that looked completely within and just being just a bit shy and costing people the game. So it's been a very tight and very dramatic weekend overall, both in the Iron Gauntlet qualifying event and now in the Invitational War Machine Weekend event.
One of the most memorable dice ones for me was when Charles on boosted attack rolls back-to-back rolled trip 1s and then trip 6s.
It's definitely an indicator of just how random and fickle fate can be for these players. So Keith has finished with his regular deployment. Now both players have their irises to deploy and advance, as well as Brandon's racks. Be interesting to see if we see some counter deployment from Iris, or if they try to avoid each other and not have a little duel of the characters here. So we've got those racks getting set up. An interesting deployment there with 2 of the racks basically in a parallel line. Making a little triangle there. And Iris looks like Brandon's going to put her in the safety of that forest.
Rack positioning always a bit more critical for 6-focus casters than for like the Severiuses and Harbingers of the game.
So Iris goes close to that wall, opposite of where it looked like he was going to deploy her. I thought he was going to put her by that forest where she'd be out of line of sight. So Keith, determining where to put his Iris, decides to put it against apart from the forest, so we will likely not see a duel of the Irises here. Keith and Brandon shake hands, and this match is underway. Brandon considering his turn. You see those metal focus tokens from his stint in the Iron Gauntlet at Lock and Load 2014, the first finals match last year. We see the Hierophant moving forward and using Harmonious Exaltation. Fiora going next, casting Escort up. And then advancing forward, using that bonus from Harmonious Exaltation to also put Ignite on the Reckoner there for 1 less focus. Next up, we see the Judicator using its focus to run forward.
And using that Escort bonus to take full advantage of the increased mobility.
Yeah. This is certainly, when you're playing against Haley too, one of the last things you want to do is be conservative in your opening moves. You know at some point you're going to have a round where you're either going to be forced to not advance or to not shoot. And in Brandon's case, his army list has a lot of ranged options and some very good range options. So he wants to get into that good position so when he gets locked down by the Haley feat, he's still going to have plenty of rockets to send her way.
Sending out some of those rockets now, just in case they deviate in coincidental directions. And
that was with an ancillary from the Vassal that you see right behind the Judicator there. So after a run using the Vassal to take a pot shot at the Signaran army. Choir activates next, advances forward. Say no non-magical shooting on the Warjacks.
The passage hymn there.
See the Reckoner spending its focus to run forward. With Ignite and the Choir bonus, that Reckoner is more than a match for the Judicator itself's high power on its fists. See the Vassal Mechanic go next, runs forward, getting behind the wall and in base to base with the Reckoner itself.
As you noted earlier, taking a nice aggressive position so that the feat doesn't prove to be as devastating as it could be.
Iris looks like she's going to be going Gorman hunting here. She zips towards that zone, being careful to stay out of harm's way while setting herself up for the ability to snipe out Gorman or take out Boom Howlers potentially by stripping off that Arcane Shield from the Journeyman.
And enliven there for the Reckoner.
See the Temple Flame Guard doing a flanking position, kind of. Brandon running that standard bearer around the forest. Is that the standard? Just one of the members, it looks like, around the forest, not the standard itself. Spreading in, losing some distance from the rough terrain from that forest template, but still being very aggressive at this opening turn. Doesn't have a lot to fear from Keith in terms of ranged potential. Those gun mages, certainly with snipe, can cause some problems. I didn't catch if he Iron Zealed.
As far as I know, he didn't.
Brandon, fairly good player at gauging threat distances like many of the players in the Invitational and the Iron Gauntlet events, likely moving in such a way that he's not within snipe distance of too many of those gun mages.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that's accurate, because those zones are a foot across, and even with snipe, gun mages are unlikely to be able to tag their targets.
See Tristan casting Fortify on that Redeemer. Advances over towards the Temple Flame Guard. Redeemer itself spends a focus and looks like it's going to run, which it does. See if he repositions it a little bit here. Fun thing to note is that we do have water on the table, so there's a potential for a knockdown to extinguish a Jack's Heartfire, causing it to be restarted. And that's the end of Brandon's turn with the final position on that Redeemer. So Keith begins his turn 1 and this round 1 of round 4 of the WARMACHINE Weekend Invitational.
Keith allocates one focus to Thorn and another one to the Centurion, and then measures his control area.
Looking to see if he can get Thorn in position to take out that Iris early.
Definitely not an easy target, but Haley has a very high focus stat and could deal with Eris via a time bomb potentially.
Even blast damage on a time bomb could certainly ruin Iris's day with her low arm.
I mean, could also go with an Arcane Bolt if he is confident in hitting. But with Eris on the hill, that's...
So there goes Thorn zipping forward.
Hard to be confident of that.
And another 6 inches. I don't know if he's going to get within stealth range of her, though.
Well, there is always the possibility of using Thorn's capability of moving from spell channeling.
He will.
So
So here
reaction
we go.
drive there.
Iris advances, gets toe on the hill. That extra movement is definitely going to be critical for Thorn to get within range, because it looks like he might be within 8, which is what he'd need.
Haley advances forward,
Gets on
takes
the hill.
up a defensive position, uses a spell.
Telekinesis on Thorn, which then allows him to go 2 and 3. So
after that 5 inches of movement, Thorn is now well under the stealth range of Eris.
So Eris looking at quite a bit of trouble here. Arcane Bolt boost to hit. He's apparently confident he's going to be able to connect.
Well, now that with the amount of focus she has left, that's probably the right call here.
Oh, so he was not able to do so. So we see Haley instead casting Deceleration.
So the technological interference on Eris Angel of Retribution kind of working alongside her stealth so that when he got under 5 inches, can no longer channel spells at Haley. He's staying outside of that at ideally right just over 5 inches and going for the time bomb. Might have worked, also maybe not.
You can only deviate 2.5 inches off the target when you miss on a 4-inch AoE like time bomb.
Yeah, if you could judge it perfectly, it'd be guaranteed.
If you get it
but
spot on.
Yeah.
Be difficult, though.
With eyeballing it, it's good chance then that you deviate off her, and it's not worth that much resources to.
So instead, Keith winds up using a spell on Haley that he says he rarely uses, which I find a little surprising, which is Deceleration. Arcane Shield from the Journeyman onto the Centurion. No surprise there. Brings that Centurion up to a super respectable arm, 24.
24, yep. Now we have the Boomhowler and Company mercenary Trollkin here running forward.
Yep, having done their Call of Defiance. So they will get 4 up tough. Keith finishing out his movement here as he spreads them out. See a quick measurement of Haley's control area to make sure they're all within deceleration round.
Still a fair number of things to activate since there are so many solos in Keith's list.
Still have Alexia, Mistress of the Witchfire, the Arcane Tempest Gun Mages.
Gorman DeWolf over there.
Yep.
Iona and Holt. Reinhold.
Reinhold, an interesting inclusion here, mostly probably for his lucky ability. So we see the gun mages running, going around that hill.
Position to fire upon Temple Flame Guard next turn, perhaps.
So we see that last model zipping forward there. Keith also playing aggressively, knowing that he's going to lock down Brandon for one turn.
Alexia, Mistress of the Witchfire, opening up, or advancing up, but somewhat conservatively.
Keith hits his clock, but remembers he has not activated Ion and Holt, so he clicks his clock back, finishing his activation.
Rule that you must activate. Do you have to activate every model and unit in your army?
Yep.
So they run over to the left flank there, and then Keith passes the turn. Currently still 52 minutes on each player's clock, as you might be able to see there.
So we see Brandon checking his control area from Fiora, seeing if he can get to Thorn. If he can remove Thorn, that'll be a huge advantage for him. Taking out Haley's Arc Node is certainly a powerful opening move here.
Especially if it occurs at no substantial cost to Brandon.
And there's very little on that side of the table that can really threaten the Reckoner. The Boom Howler & Co. can do some damage on a charge, but not much. And once you factor in the -2 from the Reckoner's persistent cloud ability from its Censure mace, it's really likely to live through any kind of reprisal Keith can push against it.
The only risk really is if it takes 3 attacks without disabling Thorn's shield, you wind up burning out the Reckoner's own Cortex and limiting its capabilities drastically moving forward.
With Ignite plus the Prayer from the Choir, though.
Not too likely.
Not too likely.
Possible.
Roll poor on your locations, and it could certainly happen. Does have the mechanic, though, so he could potentially repair it later on, but certainly not a chance you want to take on your Reckoner.
I think if the mechanic goes running over into that zone, Boom Howler's boys might have something to say about it.
They might wind up taking offense to that. Brandon considering here. Other question is if he's within range. It looked like it based on his control area measurement, but it's always difficult to tell from those camera.
But not by very much.
Would be close. Maybe we'll see our third push of the event.
Yeah.
The adjudicators push that.
No.
So we see Fortify being upkept, Escort being upkept. No surprise there. Tristan allocates his 3 remaining focus to the Redeemer. It's an interesting playoff here in terms of Deceleration versus Choir because the +2s are basically negating each other.
Right. Well, an Ignite was dropped, so don't think he's going for the Reckoner charge.
Brandon kind of asked Keith there for confirmation on Thorn's front arc. Maybe thinking he can get behind the shield.
Unload with shots.
Maybe.
Now,
so 2
with
focus
Thorn
points
having 1 foot on the hill there, matching its model actually, it's not that easy to hit.
So it looks like 2 focus have been put on the Reckoner at the moment.
With deceleration and the benefit of the hill, that's a def 17 Thorn over there from ranged attacks of models that begin their activation in its front arc.
Def 15 against the charge as well, given its set defense ability. Lancers in general more defensive than their light jack status would necessarily lead you to believe between stripping Cortex off of heavies. See the Choir go, give him a battle. Reckner's going to advance. Looks like it's just going to take a shot at Thorn. If he can get that flare off on it, that will negate the hill bonus, while the Prayer of Battle will negate the deceleration bonus. So it'll basically be looking at flat, trying to get behind that shield.
Making full use of the escort benefit.
Speed 7.
Checks his melee range to make sure that Eris won't technologically interfere with him.
Yeah, when you hire Iris, you got to be careful about that. She doesn't really discriminate against non-elven Cortexes. So, daring to take another inch-ish. So, definitely outside of 5. So, he is toeing the hill now. Boost on the hit on Thorn and does manage to hit, rolling to 12
and
on the
a critical fire.
Puts him on fire. And Thorn will take 5 points of damage to the 6. So flared Thorn now dropped back to a defense of 13 against any of the battle jacks. Iris aims and shoots at Thorn. That will disrupt him. And it only does 1 point of damage. She chooses the column, though. Brandon taking the column that'll try to take out that shield first and faster.
Or depending on where the 5 went, he might start trying to work on the arc node instead, potentially. So we now have a flared, disrupted, on fire Thorn.
See the Judicator walking. Likely going to try to get in the back arc of Thorn. Potentially, and skip the shield. Be surprised if we don't see the Judicator turn so it can put both rocket pods into Thorn. It's really Brandon's intention to try to remove that piece early. Although now disrupted, Thorn's not going to pose too much of a problem because he can't channel.
Well, and even being unable to boost rolls, you would want to boost an attack roll against Eris. You would want to boost damage rolls against the Reckoner.
Well, potentially, the disruption on the spear, which is unique to Thorn, means that just hitting the Reckoner could prove to be powerful in and of itself. Kind of becomes a slap fight between the two at that point.
Right.
You definitely don't want to really hit Thorn with the Reckoner if you're not boosting your damage rolls. Because every time you're hitting it, you're taking that Cortex damage like we talked about.
Right. Looks like, based on Keith's phone, there's at least some damage on column 1. So
Judicator has 2 inches of movement left as Brandon considers where to make his final position go. Oh, there we go. We see him turning. I don't know if he got, doesn't look like he got within Thorn's back arc, though.
No, but he does get Thorn in his left and right firing arc for purposes of ranged attacks.
And we see Brandon trying to maneuver a little bit, half an inch to the side, maybe. Or turning now fully. Not sure where he's trying to go. Unless he's trying to get a shot on Haley at this point. See a proxy base getting put in there so that he can move the Judicator properly.
So he can show us the proper facing of those different firing arcs.
So the model, the Reckoner model now standing next to the proxy base just determines its facing there. So we see a fire of the right rocket at Thorn and misses. Goes 4 inches 6 that way. No.
Was it at Thorn? I think it might be at Boomhowler.
I think it was. Looks like it was
firing at Boomhowler to try and take out the leader of the trolls.
So we see the second deviation. Second shot with the rocket. It's going to boost to hit. So, and he misses again.
Just missed Boomhowler.
Barely. So it goes 5 inches away, same direction. 4 back, so nothing again. So we see a spray at Thorn now. will hit, boosts the hit roll. Does hit this time. Boost the damage roll on the flamethrower.
Sure will.
So 7 more points going Thorn to the 4.
Not the columns he really wanted.
No.
It's really spread out.
Spreading out that damage pretty well.
Column 6 is out. Column 4 is out. Column 1's almost out. And a point on the column. Words.
See, 1 boom
It's
howler.
got a lot of damage on it.
It does. Just not in the right spots. 1 boom howler hit by the second flamethrower, but not hit, or covered by the second flamethrower, excuse me, but not hit. So overall, fairly ineffectual turn for that Judicator. Really wanted to try to remove boom howler, but not boosting the first attack roll caused it to miss thanks to deceleration. Second boosted attack roll also missed by one point on the die.
It's a good plan. If you can get rid of Doom Howler.
Yeah.
You can get rid of Boom Howler early enough. Makes it a lot easier to deal with the Trollkin.
See an Ancillary Rocket being shot again. Boom Howler misses again. It's a deceleration. So does actually catch Boom Howler this time.
This time he fired at one of the more central Trollkin.
And he does catch Boom Howler. It looks like it's going to be twice. So everybody's on fire now, which is great for Brandon. So Boom Howler is going to have a tough roll to make. And he is tough.
Boom Howler takes a little bit of damage.
Took a point, yeah.
The Trollkin.
So Boom Howler took a 1 whole point of damage. The Journeyman's also on fire, which is kind of huge, based on that secondary drift.
Yeah, Fiora's Bond, so good.
And the Journeyman not really that resilient against a fire roll with only arm 14 and 5 boxes. So if that fire stays, there's a good potential that Arc Shield's going to go away. And that would be huge.
Deceleration also has no effect on the fire.
Nope. So could be a major win for Brandon there on that drift. And make up for a fairly subpar Judicator turn, to be honest. See the Temple Flame Guard advancing forward.
Boom Howler's Call of Defiance
Shield Wall at this
will
point.
also not be effective during the fire.
Correct. It will expire before the fire damage rolls are made.
It seems like a good turn to Iron Zeal.
I didn't catch if Brandon said Iron Zeal or not, but I would be surprised if he didn't. You fully agree. You know you're going to take shots from those Arcane Tempest Gun Mages next turn. Problem is that you also kind of know that you're going to get Haley feated next turn, so clumping up like he is keeps some of them in the zone, but also takes away their ability to really do anything on that feat turn. A few of them stay out, though. So they're both Shield Walled and Iron Zealed. Brandon just confirmed that. See some Redeemer rockets now, likely coming at some point from Tristan's Redeemer. Redeemer activates, fires a rocket at a Boom Howler. So he is in range, slimmest of margins. Boost the shot. That should hit. So from the aim plus the battle puts the Redeemer at an effective at 5. So 17 is more than enough to hit a Boom Howler. Boom Howler is destroyed. See another Redeemer rocket into the next Boom Howler. Does hit, a 15. Forces a tough roll. Does not tough and is destroyed.
So that Redeemer is now done for the moment. The fortified Tristan Redeemer.
See the Vassal Mechanic activating, threading through that line there. Vassal enlivens the Reckoner one more time.
Always a good plan.
The Mechanic now goes. Gets base to base with that Judicator. Hiding behind the Reckoner as well.
It's in great position to repair either of those jacks a little bit next turn.
Yep. See Tristan advance a little bit to the side, checking his controller to make sure the Redeemer is still within it so he can give it focus next turn. Fiora's last to go. See what she decides to do here. She advances over behind the wall. Looks like she's going to be trying to set herself up to dominate her zone. That will give her 1 CP a turn, as long as she can keep Keith's models outside of it.
Which right now is one of the Mercenary Trollkin and Thorn, but could soon be a whole lot more of Boomhowler's company.
Bold advance here from Fiora. She jumps over the wall, gets
and
behind
touches the zone now.
Reckoner and is, toe in the zone. So toe in the zone for Fiora, doing her best to hide. Doesn't have much to fear from Thorn since he can't channel, I suppose, but
and doesn't give Keith the option of moving out of that zone even temporarily.
Not at all. Fire burns on the Journeyman, and the Journeyman is gone.
It's destroyed. Means that the Centurion immediately... Wait, what?
Oh, nope. The Journeyman was not destroyed. That drop of head from Keith was relief as the Journeyman lived. Fire on the Boomhowler goes out. Fire on the other Trollkin.
Fire on the random Trollkin sticks around.
Curious as to...
not tough. So we have seen Brandon whittle down the Trollkin a bit. It's such a...
Thorn's Fire cannot go out.
Such a resilient unit, but already down by 30%.
Yep.
Thorn's Fire, like you're starting to say, can't go out because...
Caustic Presence from
Caustic
Fiora.
Presence on Fiora, Protector of the Flame.
Also on that, they rolled for the Trollkin that was removed by the fire, who was not Boomhowler, but surprised they didn't measure that because I think Caustic Presence would have come in. Didn't matter because the fire didn't go out, but certainly important.
So here's Anastasia Debray. Going to try and perform some espionage.
So Anastasia, Brandon forgetting about Anastasia's ability to ambush in from the side there. Exposing Fiora a little bit. So Anastasia likely going to try to take out Iris. She doesn't really have too many answers against Fiora.
Well, if he thinks she can espionage this turn, which I think she can, move 7 and then espionage at 5, he'll probably use her late in the turn to give all of the Boomhowler Trollkin another advance and another attack. At the very least, it'll get him in better position for later. He'll also protect Thorn from those Warjacks potentially.
Potentially.
Gives Thorn an additional movement and hypothetically an attack.
Yep. And if he's smart with Anastasia's placement and Haley feats, it's going to be difficult for Brandon to remove her next turn, granting another espionage.
Yeah, people don't usually let Anastasia stick around to espionage twice. But if so, it'd be super powerful. Keith considering all his options.
Focus allocation here. Burns a accumulator box on the Squire to get an additional 1 on Haley.
Gives 8 total focus for Haley this turn.
Drops 3 on the Centurion.
Yeah, looks like there is a whole bunch on the Centurion.
Thorn gets nothing since he's disrupted.
And the Journeyman Warcaster upkeeps the Arcane Shield spell on the Centurion, holds on to the other focus, of course.
So Keith checking out that table position right now, trying to decide what he needs to do.
So starts the turn out with Gorman DeWolf. advances towards Iris and throws an acid bomb at her. He's at a distance where even though it doesn't hit her directly, it deviates onto her, and he rolls high enough to destroy Iris. Acid bomb, a very strong option.
Keith trying to decide if he wants to be espionage the Boom Howlers this turn.
It's going to be close.
Trying to figure out if he can do anything of worth against the Judicator with Boom Howlers. Clearly expects that with temporal acceleration plus the bond on the... Not sure which Jack is actually bonded to Haley.
The Centurion's bonded.
Centurion
has 4 focus.
She's not listed on his sheet.
And here comes Anastasia. She moves up 5 of her 7.
And another inch. That's 7 inches.
And
so
she
her full
cannot
movement
move
right
any
there.
farther forward.
It's now engaged by that Reckoner. And
So
is within
he's got
Espionage range.
Fiora, Protector of the Flame, within 5. It looks like he does not have Boomhowler within 7. Or not Boomhowler, but that Trollkin from
That looks
Boomhowler and
definitely
Company.
out,
Yeah,
so
definitely out.
Espionage is not going to go off on the Boom Howler.
So
So
Thorn will now
Gorman or
espionage.
Oh, she espionages herself to keep herself still in the game here.
Well, she can espionage all 3. Like, it's not a choice. It's the models and units in range suddenly go.
See a dagger throw at one of the vassals, which misses. Only getting a 12.
So Gorman and Thorn could now perform movements and attacks as well.
Likely we'll see a black oil bomb here. Potentially a rust bomb, I suppose, to drop the Judicator's armor. Actually, that's more than likely what we'll see.
Especially since it's fairly easy to...
Yep.
Oh, no, blind.
Huh?
Not really going to change...
So.
It's not going to change the armor like Rust would have for
Nope.
the Centurion's attacks, but it will...
Combined with Haley's feet, it'll lock down that Judicator
Really?
completely.
Yeah, shut down the offense of the Judicator for a turn.
Judicator black oiled, not good news for the Judicator, especially with Haley's feet to come.
Keith activates Boomhowler and Company at this point.
So
They
Boomhowler getting the
receive
charge order.
And the Call of Defiance Fell Howl. So they are once again tough on a roll of 4, 5, or 6 when they attempt tough rolls. We've got some of the models charging in here on the Judicator.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that the Reckoner's actual position is that proxy base, the Reckoner model is just to designate that the proxy base is a Reckoner and is faced in the direction that the Reckoner is facing.
See a run from a Boomhowler. So Brandon reminding Keith of the proxy base. So runs and attempts to stay out of melee range of the Reckoner.
So that is the final position as the players and judge discuss and agree that particular Trollkin mercenary ran to.
See more runs from Boomhowlers to get the unit in that zone.
Boomhowler himself will need to make sure to get his crew in his command range.
Still a couple Boomhowlers left to go, it looks like, over in the corner
Yeah,
there.
just the one, I think, because they're down to 7 man left.
Staying in the middle there. Keith now going to make some charge attacks, I would assume.
Still not certain how exactly that Centurion is going to get to the adjudicator. How much focus does Haley have
Somehow
left?
misses on the first attack. How much focus does Haley have left on her?
Yeah.
She should have 4 left.
So she can't temporal accelerate and telekinesis.
Yep.
Is telekinesis alone going to be enough?
Well, you figure that the bonded Centurion gets +2 inches of movement from the bond. Temporal acceleration will give it another +2 inches of movement, so that's 4. On top of its 4 alone, so 8.
Well, but I think she needs to telekinesis. If she doesn't telekinesis,
I think he's going to clip the objective.
Oh, absolutely.
So telekinesis.
The angle there is not going to allow a direct charge due to the objective position.
Well, she didn't upkeep any spells, so she should have 9 then, because she took 1 off the Squire. Arcane Shield is the only spell that's up right now because Deceleration is not an upkeep. So she should have 5. She should have enough to do it. 2 for Telekinesis, 3 for Temporal Acceleration.
Yeah. That was my mistake. I was missing the 5th focus. That will do the trick.
So there's the feat.
Naturally.
That's what we expected. There's the Telekinesis.
There's telekinesis.
Putting it in a clear charge lane. Temporal Acceleration's next.
Temporal Acceleration.
And now she's going to advance a little bit, knowing she has very little to fear.
Yeah, due to the blinded adjudicator, she's in fairly safe position right now.
Mm-hmm.
Keith notes that with the way that Haley's feat works, there's certain models that he kind of doesn't really even need or want to get in the feat, because the models that are caught in the feat must activate at the beginning of Brandon's activation.
Can't move in to get the Redeemer.
The Choir and the Racks are going to have to activate at the end.
So that'll be where she is. Squire moves up and expands his control back to 18 inches. You'll notice he was only measuring 16 at that point with the feet because the Squire was out of range for the extra 2 inches.
Keith getting clarification on the water in terms of what part of that terrain feature is actual shallow water and what's just like scenic basing for the shallow water.
So 11 inches of charge movement on that Centurion, which puts it all the way in with room to spare.
So it's possible that the temporal acceleration was not even needed.
So just needs not Snake Eyes. Hits and criticals, so now sustained attack means no more rolls to hit.
No more of those.
On the spear, at least.
Snake Eyes when you always could roll Snake Eyes.
7 points to the 2 on the first attack.
Attacks with the shield. Doesn't deal any damage. The temporal acceleration attack with the spear does 7 more to the 4. He purchases an attack with the piston spear.
I think he actually pulled that one for the charge.
Ah.
So this is the first
now
bot
he buys,
attack.
yeah. Now he buys an attack.
7
Does
damage.
additional damage. Another attack. 3 more. 1 final attack.
The right arm is out.
So the right side of the adjudicator is now completely eliminated, and there's just a little bit of damage onto the left side of the adjudicator as well at this point. And with the adjudicator blinded and under the temporal shift feat, will not be able to do much in response.
Now having to forfeit, well, both movement and activation, and action.
Eris advances forward, takes a position in the woods where it's less than 3 inches to the edge so that she can see out. She shoots at one of the Temple Flame Guard there and takes him out of the equation. Alexia declares a ride by attack using her cavalry movement rules. Moves forward a bit. Has used almost all of her movement. Alexia uses Hellfire and destroys one of the Temple Flame Guard, but because of inspiration, they are not going to flee or even make a command check.
Sound and Holt going next here.
Kiss of Lilith from Ayana. Trying for the Temple Flame Guard.
So the Kiss of Lilith was a little bit out of range, it looked like.
So
otherwise,
pistol shots.
Holt failing.
Both, one failed to connect, I think, and one failed to damage.
Yep.
Is that right?
Not able to get through that +8 arm from Iron Seal Shield Wall.
The Arcane Tempest Gun Mage Pistoliers are now advancing forward a bit. Taking positions to also fire upon the Temple Flame Guard.
So now pushing the
Using
Temple Flame Guard.
Thunderbolt attack type pushes this particular Temple Flame Guard to deny some shield wall bonuses.
He does actually hit another member of his unit, though. So,
but the frontmost guys are now
not
benefiting.
Exposed. So see critical brutal next.
Shot on the forwardmost Temple Flame Guard, dispatching him.
So Alexia collects another soul from that. Giving her 3 now. Thrall Warrior's probably on the way.
We have a snipe shot. Fires on a not in shield wall Temple Flame Guard.
Does manage to get rid of that Flame Guard. And
he's eliminated. No soul for Alexia from that particular attack.
Just out. See another one trying to snipe that lone Temple Flame Guard.
Officer here is trying to make a snipe attack at the last Temple Flame Guard. It's in range. It does not hit.
So,
and I believe this is the last. Oh, nope, second to last. Now the last. Gun Mage who misses that. Oh. Wow.
There we go. Last one. 4 total shots missing that Temple Flame Guard. It's apparently very dodgy even under Haley's feet, which is locking him in place. So Thorn still yet to activate here, as well as Reinhold, I believe. So Thorn can't be disrupted anymore and just hops on the hill.
All right, so the Judicator does get its focus from the Reliquary.
So doing a quick measurement of Haley's control area. So getting a judge here. So exactly 15 inches from Fiora to Haley. Haley in a vulnerable-ish position if Brandon can get to her.
Not a whole lot that really can, though.
Brandon's certainly very capable of coming up with unique solutions to these problems, though, as we saw in the game he played against Tom Guan. Checking line of sight here.
Well, the Judicator's not going to be able to help at all. The Reckoner is probably not going to be able to help at all.
Well, the Judicator does get to ancillary attack at least once.
Sure.
So it's determined that the Judicator can draw line of sight to Haley.
Can ancillary attack, but with blind, it won't be. Well, no, it can't.
Can't make ranged attacks.
Yeah, can't make any ranged attacks at all,
So
even
no ancillary
with
there.
the penalties. So it's gonna lose its combat action regardless, and then it can't make ranged attacks even if they are ancillary. So
Reckoner has to activate